Hello fellow readers and booktubers. I am titling this video 5 Things You Should Never Say to a Reader, because these things are insulting and stupid. This is a bit of a rant. As I was putting together some notes for this video, I struggled with the title, what to call this. The initial title was 5 Things You Should Never Say to a Reader of Books. But then I thought that phrase reader of books is a made-up title I made for myself. You know, my booktube channel, as I'm sure you know, is Robert G. Reader of Books. And I thought if I titled the video that, some people might think what I'm saying is you should never say these things to me personally. But no, I mean these are 5 things you should never say to anybody who reads books. Another title I had for it was 5 Things You Should Never Say to a Book Lover. And I rejected that one because sometimes when people talk about book lovers, they mean people who collect books, rare books, first editions. There are certain sets of books that are meant to be collected, and people who just love the object of a book. Now, people like that often read as well, but I just want to focus on readers, people who just read books. So I've settled on this 5 things you should never say to a reader. Now, I also realize that this video, I'm addressing people who are never going to watch this video. They're probably never going to view this unless by accident. Because, the people that would say insulting things to a reader, they're not going to care what a reader might have to say in response. At least that's been my experience. But I decided I would go ahead with the video anyway, because my audience is you, my fellow readers and booktubers, and by going through this list of these 5 things, I'm commiserating with you, because I know you have all heard these 5 statements, or maybe a couple of them anyway. Maybe you've heard them in a different way, or different wording or something, but I know you've encountered this stuff from time to time, and I know it's annoying and it is insulting. Now, let me just go through these 5 things, and I'm not going to take them in any particular order. It's just as they have come to me and as I've heard them. A couple of these things I heard very recently. So, here's one thing you should never say to a reader. I wish I had as much time to read books as you do. And this is something of a non sequitur. It's a stupid thing to say. There's an implied insult here, because even if the person saying this even if their intention is to compliment you, that you have so much time to read, they're not really complimenting you. What they're saying is their lives are so full and so busy, they don't have time to sit and read a book. And what they're saying about you is, apparently, your life is so boring, you have nothing better to do than read. So again, this is absurd. Those of us who love to read, we're reading. That's what we do. This is our thing. This is, we're not just doing this because we've got nothing else to do. In fact, most of us like reading because there's nothing else we'd rather do than read. But people who aren't like that don't understand this. And in reality, they think that we're somehow lacking. We're the wallflowers or something like that. And nothing could be further from the truth. And it's very hard to respond to a comment like that. And I have heard it a number of times. I often wonder about people who say something like this, because you just know that if they had that extra time that they seem to think they need to sit down with a book, they wouldn't do that. If they would not use any extra time they had to read anyway. So I wish I had as much time to read as you do. No, you don't. You're not going to read a book. If you have extra time, you're going to be doom scrolling. You're going to be looking at videos on YouTube. You're going to be posting things on Facebook or whatever is out there on social media. So don't give me this, I wish I had as much time to read as you do. If you had the time, you would not be reading anyway. And I'm reading because I like to read. This is what I do. There's my response to that one. I don't have responses to all of these, by the way. The second thing you should never say to a reader, I'm sure you readers out there have heard this one. I would rather live life than read about it. This is the classic false dilemma. It's as if these are mutually exclusive concepts, but they're not. In fact, you should do both. You should live life and you should read about it. It's not like you have to choose one or the other. And imagine this: say you're going to a foreign country. Say you're going to Italy and you're going to visit Rome for the first time. Well, you should read about Rome. And not just a travel guide. Get a book about the history of Rome, about ancient Rome, about modern Rome, how Rome became the capital of Italy, about some great read books written by Roman writers or Italian writers or something like that, and then go visit the city. It will enrich your experience. Or sometimes you may experience something that you have never experienced before, and then you get home and you're thinking about it. Someone else has experienced that as well, and find a book about it. They might be able to articulate what you're feeling or maybe give you a deeper insight into it. But this idea about I would rather live life than read about it, that's a false dilemma. And again, it's an insult to the reader, because they're saying to you that you should get out more. You're too insulated. Well, in reality, maybe you're not. Maybe you do live a lot of life, and you also like to ponder it and think about it. And that's what happens when you read a book. You're pondering things and thinking about them. So this is the classic false dilemma, and I've heard this one more than once. Okay, and then the next one, this is the third one, is do you reread books? I was asked this recently, but it wasn't really a question. I could tell by the tone it was meant to be an insult, as if the person who had asked me this could not imagine anything more time-wasting or less worthwhile than rereading a book. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of ridicule and judgment. A reply to this would be like, do you listen to your favorite song only once? I guess you could kind of say something like that. People who say this, sometimes they're readers themselves, but they're not readers. They're not true readers. I don't know what to call a person like, or a title there can be for someone like this, other than an illiterate literate. These are people who don't know how to engage with a book. They flip through the pages of a book the way you'll flip through the screens on your phone. Or the way you might stare at a television screen. They're reading, but it doesn't touch them. It's just, for them, it's just a way to pass the time, and they'd rather be doing something else. And they think there's just no engagement with the book there. They don't understand the true joys of reading or the wonder that reading has to give to you. And they really think that reading Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov one time is plenty. They can't imagine going back to it because they know how it turns out. Well, they've missed the entire idea of the novel. Or they'll read a book on philosophy, and they'll read a book, Epictetus's book on Stoicism, and they'll read that one time and they'll never go back to it again because they read that book and they know what's said. Well, there's a lot said in that book that you'll miss the first time around. They'll read Shakespeare once. No, I read Macbeth. I don't have to go back to it. Yes, you do. But again, people who find it bizarre that anyone would reread a book are people, I think, who really don't know how to read. How about that? The fourth question or comment I've often heard is, and this one is kind of connected to the one I just talked about, is if you've read one book about fill in the blank, why read another one about the same thing? I heard this recently when someone was perusing my bookcases and they noticed I had about 20 biographies of Julius Caesar. And they just thought that was ridiculous. If you read one book about Caesar, why read another one? I've also got a lot of biographies of Abraham Lincoln. I've got a lot of books about ancient Rome. I have books about World War II and things like this. People who ask this are people who don't understand nuance. They see life in black and white. And so they figure if you've read one biography of a particular individual, you've got the whole story. Well, in reality, you don't. Other biographers will have other views and other opinions and ideas and insights, which is why there are often so many biographies about the same person, and also written over a period of time, reflecting the age or the time of the author himself. So, people who say this, again, I don't think they really know how to read. They're really not interested. They might read a biography of Lincoln and think, well, that's that story, but they just, they don't get it. I think maybe that applies to anybody who would say any of these things I'm talking about. They read, but they don't know how to read, and they don't care to know how to read, and they find it ridiculous and perhaps even threatening when they encounter people like you and I who do know how to read and who do know how to really enjoy a book and engage with a book. And finally, why do you have so many books? This is just a little part of my collection. A couple of the rooms here in my home are also filled with books. Well, first of all, let me say that I do understand that some people prefer to borrow books from a library, and in fact, I encourage that. That's a wonderful thing. I do it myself. Everyone should have a library card. You should visit your library on a regular basis. Some people prefer to borrow books from the library rather than own them, and there could be a lot of reasons for that. Some of it could just simply be a budgetary reason. Books are very expensive, and for some people, it might be a storage problem. They might live in a small studio apartment, and there's not really enough room for a huge collection of books. Although I would contend that no matter how small your living space might be, you should have at least one bookcase with some books in it. To misquote the famous Roman statesman Cicero, a room without books is like a body without a soul. It's a very famous quote. I like the quote very, very much. I agree with it. It's often attributed to Cicero, but for those of you who have heard the quote, Cicero really didn't say that. The origin of it is obscure. It's not Cicero, but it's a great quote. Why have so many books? The presence of books is a source of comfort. It's a source of optimism. As long as there are books around, civilization still exists. We're still here. The human race is still striving for greater things. If the books go away, civilization will go away and culture will go away with it. I imagine, given the current tone of the times or the temper of the time, I sometimes fear that someday someone might be kicking in my door, or a group of someone's, and they'll come in to burn all my books. Well, throw me on the pyre with it, okay? Because as long as these books are around, I feel some comfort, some security in knowing that the human race has not lost all sense of purpose or sense of hope. So that's what I've got for you today. Keep reading, hang in there, and take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening to my rant.